So you just cheat people. I really like this is standard. So you have to like
Mike, are you begging for money today?
Sorta. Are you?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I kind of am, kind of not. So.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that
More of a demand.
I didn't even know that there was an equipment budget.
That's nice.
We're
I mean,
asking.
CCN's hit it up quite a bit in the past.
What?
CCN's hit it up quite a bit in the past.
Oh, really? Because this time we're requesting equipment from the special budget request.
It'll probably get pushed over to the equipment.
It's $1,000. You said there were only 600 in the equipment.
No, there's 6,000.
Oh, 6,000. Oh, yeah. Does it need to be an emergency with an equipment failure like it was this time? Oh, cool. So we can request any time.
Yep.
That's good to know. I don't think current has.
It's been a couple years. It's been like
Yeah, I don't think the
camera
current.
requests. So.
We actually could use a new camera because, like a few years ago, we bought a very expensive camera. So expensive that everyone wanted to use it, which means that it's in such high demand that essentially we need a second to be functional with it because it's so professional looking. It looks different from anything else, and everyone is constantly reserved. And it's like,
They don't want that camera.
yeah. So unfortunately, I think that one is a bit expensive. It's like $2,000 or $3,000. So it was, you know, a big deal. And this was 2 years ago when we got it, but it now lives on reputation alone as the best thing ever.
I feel like they. I remember them purchasing that camera.
Yeah, the fancy cam, so to speak. This is my favorite camera, though. It's technically the cheapest of our HD cams, but...
We filmed Gala with that.
Oh, with a fancy cam?
No, one of these.
Oh, yeah.
And did like the live display and didn't realize that you couldn't turn off like the date.
Oh.
And it's...
Huh.
It was maybe like 3 years ago.
Right, we haven't filmed Gala we didn't film it last year, and we're not filming it this year. And I don't know. I'd be perfectly willing to help organize filming it again, but
This meeting of the 102nd session of the Clark Undergraduate Student Council will come to order. Rebecca, roll call, please.
Andrew?
Here.
Rory? Here. Rebecca? Here. Raymond? Julia? Here. Sally? Here. Jennifer? Here. Aaron? Here. William? Here. Tyler? Scott? Shaylin? Here. Rebecca? Here. Delight? Here. Hannah? Here. Sammy? Roddy? Brittany? Here. Alex? Here. Savannah? Here. Lauren? Here. Ellen? Here. Kevin? Here.
Thanks, Rebecca. Next, we'll be moving into the reading of the minutes from last week. Is there any motions on the floor? Shaylin.
I move to waive the reading of the minutes.
There's a motion on the floor to waive the reading of the minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Will. Questions to the wording? Discussion. All those in favor of waiving the reading of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion passes. Next, we'll be moving into the approval of the minutes. Are there any motions on the floor? Shaylin.
I move to approve minutes.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Becca. Questions to the wording? Discussion. All those in favor of waiving the reading, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. Alright. So next we'll be moving into public comments. Are there any public comments on the floor at this time? Alright. Seeing none, we'll be moving into financial matters with the grants committee report. Aaron?
I need to allocate $1,000 to to Lorena and Reaver. It's a campus compound project. They initially asked for 4,220. They're holding an event on the green on April 5th, which will be something like Spree Day. They'll have several students presenting academic material. I believe they'll have a speaker. They'll have possibly a musical performance as well. And they're looking to involve a number of student activities. There are student groups on campus as well. We decided to award $1,000 and not the full amount because it seemed like a very cool, promising event and something that could stick around for a while, and we wanted to give them money to at least get started. They're going to look to work co-sponsor with other groups and possibly with faculty office about additional funding as well.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to allocate $1,000 to Lorena for reverb. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Radhika. Questions to the wording or any points of discussion? Anything else to add? All right, thanks. Are there anybody who'd like to talk about this request?
Yeah, I would like to articulate that it's about creativity, the event, and it's all Clark students, faculty, alumni, anyone associated with Clark. So it won't be any speaker coming in from the outside, but it will be, there'll be an opportunity for everyone to apply. So it's creativity across the board. So from entrepreneurship to, initiatives that student council puts on to, arts, sciences, anyone who does anything creative. So it might be that you have a creative birthday card that you want to display. So it's kind of like Start in the Street meets Clark's Got Talent meets a whole day of workshops. So it might be a workshop in how to knit or how to do a henna tattoo or these kinds of different things. And I think the main point that I want to make is that it's trying to draw from all aspects of Clark culture, Clark community life, and Clark creativity. And so, yeah, I think that's all I want to say.
Becca.
I just have a question for you. Is that date set in stone or is
No, the date is going to have to change because that is going to be gala, which just changed. So I'll talk to you about that.
All right, are there any other points of discussion? Seeing none, we'll be moving into voting. All those in favor of allocating $1,000 from quarter three to Lorena for reverb, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. Aaron?
I move to allocate $285 at CUSC to Bridget Healy and for a conference in Washington, D.C. for Advocacy Day. This is something we've funded before. She's sought funding from outside as well. The cost will cover for 3 different people, entry fees, as well as some of the metro transportation once they get to DC.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to allocate $285 from advocacy to Bridget Haley. Is there a second? Second by Radhika. Are there any questions to the wording or points of discussion? Is Bridget here?
I'm one of the people who will be going there. So it's a conference, it's a 2-day conference in Washington, D.C. in March. And it's sponsored by the Career Services and Study Abroad. And also we've got some funding from 2 different departments of Clark. However, it's none of them is they wouldn't have enough to cover for our registration fees and the transportation. So we came to council to see if you guys support it. So
Are there any questions for the wording or points of discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll be moving into voting. All those in favor of allocating $285 from advocacy to Bridget Haley for the Advocacy Day event in Washington, D.C., please say aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Aaron?
I move to allocate $450 to Sammy North for EMT class. It's something we funded for civil states. It's something we expect to fire to EMS. And we thought it's a very good
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to allocate $450 from quarter 3 to Sandy North for an EMT class. Is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Are there any questions to the wording or points of discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll be moving into voting. All those in favor of allocating $450 from quarter 3 to San Leonor for a EMT class, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Seeing as such, this motion passes. Aaron?
I allocate I'm looking at $1,000 from the equipment fund to the Clark cable network. They recently, I'm sure. Yeah, you can
Yes,
tell me more.
I can explain from here. Recently, CCN experienced a catastrophic hard drive crash which destroyed roughly 3 terabytes of content. That's a massive amount. And so anyways, not only is that one hard drive in dire need of replacement, but this also highlights that we at this point have no backup system in place in our studio to prevent this from happening again. Faced with that terrifying reality, we've decided to request that we buy a RAID array. Now, what an external RAID array will do is not only provide enough space to continue the Clark Cable Network's expansion, which has allowed us to do such things as film live events and film these student council meetings here, but the great thing about a RAID array is it automatically backs up your data for you, so we'll never have to worry that we'll lose this much data ever again. It is a very useful tool, and so I very much hope that you will approve it.
Are there any other questions or points of discussion?
Sorry, could you please state your name for the minutes?
Oh, my name is Ethan Goldstein.
Are there any other points of discussion? Aaron?
We proposed, that in the future, possibly this type of thing be anticipated and planned for out of here on the budget, as anything with electronics is very prone to malfunction, or possibly to look in investing in like a large Dropbox. I don't know the ins and outs of what you guys do.
Yeah, Dropbox, while that can provide some storage, requires a yearly fee for 1 terabyte of roughly $800. So this gets us 9 terabytes of space for 1,000, as opposed to 1 terabyte for $800 per year. So I believe the student council and the grants committee would agree that by having the physical system here, we're making far more efficient use of our money. And indeed, in the future, in our next budget, I will talk to our treasurer, Kern O'Donoghue, and I think we'll add a new section to the budget specifically anticipating this sort of stuff. So while our overall budget may be raised in the future, we also won't have to come crawling to student council when something like this occurs.
Are there any other points of discussion at this time? All right, seeing none, we will be moving into voting. So there's a motion on the floor to allocate $1,000 from the equipment fund to CCN. Is there a second? Second by Will. Questions to the wording, or discussion? Seeing none, we'll be moving to voting. All those in favor of allocating $1,000 from the equipment fund to CCN, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion passes.
I moved out $360 to club basketball for 2 separate transportation occasions, one on the 15th of February, another on the 25th. This will cover 2 vans and the expenses for gas, using games that have already been scheduled and worked out. So it's very, we support club basketball a bit, and I think it's a very good thing to invest in. Jake's over here too.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? I'm Jake Malvin. I came here last semester for jerseys. Thanks, we got them. They're awesome. We need some vans to go to games. We have a game at Babson and at Harvard, and we got our first practices this semester coming up. We're going to be ready for those games, and we want to get there. So I hope that you guys will allow us to get there.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to allocate $360 from quarter 3 to club basketball. Is there a second? Second by Hannah. Questions to the wording or any points of discussion? Becca?
What mode of transportation are you using?
Clark vans. So we'll have 2 Clark vans for each game. We have 16 members on the team as well as our coach. Our coach will drive there himself, and the vans hold 8 people each.
Are there any other points of discussion? Seeing none, we'll be moving into voting. All those in favor of allocating $360 from quarter 3 to club basketball, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion passes.
Thanks, guys.
They're open to events on August 2nd. From what it sounds like, it's a leadership, sustainability leadership conference. They're going to have a speaker, and it's going to be catered by Clark Dining Services, and it will be something that will sounds like it will be long lasting. $330 was for Tilton and for kind of miscellaneous utensils, name tags, pencils, which Andrew can explain.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew. So we originally requested, I believe it was 1,030. 200 of that we won't be needing, which was for speaker transportation, but all the speakers are able to make it here on their own. And so remaining is just the funding for food, which will cost $415 for catering and maybe like 40 for spreads and stuff for a Panera donation that we're giving. So we're working with the Speakers Forum to get money for that, and we're also going to try and request money from the LEAP program for it. Do you guys have any questions about it?
Are there any questions to the wording or points of discussion? All right, so there's a motion on the floor to allocate $330 from quarter 3 to the Equipment Ladies Society. Is there a second? Second by Julia. Questions to the wording or any other points of discussion?
State your last name for minutes.
Andrew Hostetler. Would you like me to spell that?
Roy.
Another place to look for money would be, I think they wrote it down, it's the PCF, Program for Sponsorship Fund.
Oh, okay.
You get up to $300.
Sweet. And who would I speak to about that?
It's a form online.
Okay.
Just go online, say PCF request.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other points of discussion? Seeing none, we'll be moving into voting. All those in favor of allocating $330 from quarter 3 to the Griffin and Ladies Honor Society, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Can I say something?
Aaron, do you have anything else to report?
No, last year's tasks.
All right, so next we'll be moving down the agenda into the Finance Committee report. Becca.
Sorry to interrupt, but I also wanted to invite all of you guys to the Leadership Conference. It's going to be a great opportunity to listen to other people's experience in leadership in multiple facets of the community. Hope you guys can all come.
Alright, so next we'll be moving into the Finance Committee report. Seeing that Ray and Scott are both here, would a member of the committee like to report on what you guys have done the past week?
I guess I will. We're currently reviewing all the requests and are trying to eliminate our groups. Make a good headway.
Sounds good. Katie?
They're talking about mid-year budgets. That's what they're reviewing. They met today without their chair or the treasurer, so they got through some of the applications, but February 6th will be when finance will be bringing those recommendations to council. So FYI, there's going to college of so I passed that date along to them. They just said that this afternoon. So if any clubs are asking you, that's when they're going to
Do any other members of the Finance Committee have anything else to report? Alright, so next we're moving down the agenda into student life with the organizational committee report. Shalane?
So hi everyone. We set up our meeting times. We haven't met yet because we haven't had any PCF requests since Monday was a holiday anyway. Didn't want it so that people check out in the snow. And so we'll be meeting on Mondays at 5:30.
Do you have anything else to report? Alright. So next we'll be moving into the Judiciary Committee report. Nick?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Alright, so next we'll be moving into internal business with the operational report. I have nothing to report at this time. There's going to be some other stuff down in new business that we'll have to talk about. So that's going to be a good discussion coming up. Lori, do you have anything to report as Vice President?
Yeah, nothing to report till we get down to new business.
Alright. So Ray's not here, so would any member of the Finance Committee or Katie like to report for the Treasurer's report? No? Alright. So next we'll be moving into the Secretary's report. Rebecca?
So I cleaned out the cabinet, the filing cabinet, where we have some supplies in the office. I also have started the process of trying to order some new stuff for us, like some paper. So hopefully that will all work out. And if you can think of anything that we need that you don't see after I get the new order in, let me know so I can order it and we can be a happy student house. Oh, and everyone, email me your times for office hours.
Anything else to report? Okay. Next we'll be moving into the Elections Committee report. Rebecca?
Okay, so we have, if you can believe it, we have e-board elections for the next year coming up relatively soon. So in a week, on January 30th, the petitions will be released. And then, so if you want to run for any of the 4 e-board positions, you'll pick up a petition then. We'll also be doing advertising, so we'll work with communications to disseminate that information. And then 2 weeks later, petitions will be due, and we'll have a meeting, typical. So just be aware that that's coming up. Also, we're still interviewing for 2 members for Grants Committee, as well as Spring Day Chair, and those are due this Friday for applications. So word of mouth, spread it out, spread the word that we're open positions. Yeah, thank you.
So next we'll be moving into the Communications Committee report.
We have set our final meeting time for the semester, which is good, and we will be getting all the supplies together to start student council, which will be a way to in the office and have better dialogue with our constituents. Hopefully, and we're also working on an event for a few events for this coming semester, and we will have Kisses with Council again on February 13th. So for your afternoon, so we can work those office hours. And that's it.
Okay. All right. So next we're moving into unfinished business. Seeing that there is none, we'll be moving into new business with a cumulative surplus request from SLP. So what happened yesterday and this morning was that we met with Mike and Katie from SLP, and they're requesting a decent amount of money from our cumulative surplus account for something called Cougar Fest or Floyd Fest. The name is still up in the air. So Mike, would you like to kind of take it away?
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Mike McKenna. I'm the Director of Student Leadership and Programming. It's kind of a couple of things going here. The last couple of years, Spree Day, our sort of annual spring tradition, we're doing like a workshop, it's sort of lost its excitement, and that it's really gotten to be kind of lame, to tell the truth. And Katie and I have really kind of noticed just sort of a lack of excitement about our spring tradition on campus. And while the exciting thing of getting classes off was, a good thing for the students, there really wasn't much enthusiasm around anything else that was taking place on campus, or any of the sponsored events that we would host on campus. And so Katie and I were sitting on the stage last year and just being like, it just doesn't feel like a spring celebration. This doesn't feel like anything exciting. So we were already under the sort of the idea that we would be trying to give Spree Day a good kick in the pants and trying to make it a little more exciting. And then we got called out by a couple of the vice presidents who said that some changes needed to happen with Spree Day. And we started putting our thinking caps together and started looking at what other schools do and then trying to figure out how to make sort of a new and exciting spring tradition that was really, kind of worthy of Clark and worthy of the time and effort that goes into planning such an event, and also sort of, really kind of celebrates, our community and just an overall fun time for everybody. So what came out of that was initially called Cougar Stock. We're now working with Cougar Fest. We're now working with Freud Stock as our name for it, but we're still working on that. Freud Fest, Freud Stock, we haven't really settled on a full name for it yet. But what has come out of that is sort of this mega spring weekend of a collection of a whole bunch of different events, and I'll take you guys through the schedule in a minute. Combining such campus traditions as the International Gala, the National Gala After Party, Spree Day, and also combined with a new tradition that we want to bring in kind of off the heels of the John Oliver Show and doing a big comedy show in the springtime. So that's why I've been asking you guys so much about who you want to see for a comedy show, because this is a part of that. The long-range plan for this is that it will, in a sense, pay for itself next year, and that's we have a budget for Spree Day, we have a budget for Gala, and we have what's called the Major Event Committee, which was created 5 or 6 years ago to have a big fall concert. What we found in the past 5 or 6 years is that that fall concert tends to hit once every 3 or 4 years, usually because there aren't that many choices in terms of good tours out there in the fall. So the first year we had Gym Class Heroes. It was huge, 1,500 people. It was a big show. The year after that was like State Radio, 400 people. And then the year after that was another 400-person show. It was Telly Quill and David Banner, which made like 500 or 600 people. But then the year after that, Jason Derulo, we had like 1,800 people. And then a couple of years of not so weird shows. So we were thinking that the Major Event Committee, in terms of doing a fall event, has sort of seen its day, and shifting that into this sort of mega weekend schedule and using that to do a big comedy show along with all these other things would be a better use of that money, because it would just be something that folks are more looking to see. So I think without further ado, I'll introduce to you guys the schedule, but my initial point for being here was first to sort of roll out this new campus tradition to you guys, so you guys are the first to preview what it's going to be like. But then also we had a chance at Aziz Ansari, who's the guy from Parks and Rec. But unfortunately, between meeting with these guys yesterday and today, he upped his price by 25 grand, so he's out of our range, which is unfortunate. But many of those acts that I have surveyed you about are still available and within our price range. So we are able to snag up a pretty big comedy show. So I would say that my request still stands, because the more money I have to work with in securing a big act, the better act I can get. And $15,000. My request is for $15,000. That $15,000 is a pretty significant difference in the level of show that we can do. You may be saying right now, where are we going to get $15,000 from? The type of request that I'll put forward is from your cumulative surplus. And what that is at the end of the year when all the clubs have stopped spending their money, there's typically a decent amount of money left. And so you have an account called cumulative surplus where all that money goes to. At the end of the year, it's about $100,000 typically. You can't spend lower than $50,000. So that $50,000 chunk is up to for you guys to do different things with. Your bylaws prescribe that 15,000, so the first 15,000, so 50,000 to 65, is for programming, but it doesn't say what programming is. You guys can define that how you want to. So we've done everything from bus transportation to a showdown at the Hanover to helping to fund things like International Gala and stuff like that. So my proposal is $15,000 from your programming budget to help give this Cougar Fest, Freud Fest, whatever we call it, Freud Stock, a boost for its first year so we can really go big in that first year and really roll in this new campus tradition in style. It's already got some big events surrounding it, but being able to do a big community would help to kind of give it that little extra poof. So that's that. Lost my train of thought, but so that I would say my request still stands. If you can't swing it, or you don't want to swing it, or you don't want to give all of it, that's fine. We're still planning on doing the comedy show. It just probably won't be someone as good. That's all. So I think what I'll do is I'll just roll out Freud stock for you right now, and then you guys can talk about whether or not you want to allocate the money, and then you can ask me any questions, and we'll kind of go from there. So if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna pull the projector away. So one of the things that we noticed, got a little creative with word art tonight, was that we were one of the only campuses left that was really kind of taking a day off of classes in the middle of the week. And besides being a day off of classes, it wasn't really anything else that was exciting. So as I said, we really wanted to create a new, exciting campus tradition for you guys that involved a lot of excitement, a lot of events, and quite frankly, a lot of food. So the dates for Freudstock, Cougar Fest, whatever we're going to call it, is the 4th through the 7th of April, which is that first full weekend in April. Going to kick it off a little light on Thursday night with some type of big drive-in movie. We'll probably do like a big premiere, something that's not available on DVD or Redbox or anything like that, on the campus screen. And then also do big prize bingo like we do on Spree Day. So on Spree Day, we've, the last couple of years, introduced a big prize bingo, which is bigger than our typical bingo, where we spend $500. We might spend $2,000, $3,000 on some really big prizes, and usually pulls in a really big attendance. So sort of a light start to the night. The next day is the big day, and this is Friday the 5th. We initially were toying with the notion of not canceling classes, but then we realized that that would be a big deal for you guys. I didn't want to buck that tradition, so Katie and I went to bat and really talked to members of the upper administration, and were able to convince them that that was a major part of the spring celebration. So we've been able to get you guys class off on Friday, April 5th. During that day, there will be a huge campus barbecue, which is being paid for by the President's office, from 11:30 to 2. The Mazikowski Concourse is the former Downing Street. During which that Reverb Creativity Street Festival, which you guys just gave some money for, will take place from 12 to 4. And Woo Me Worcester, which is another street festival being sponsored by the Woo Card, will be taking place from 3 to 5. So that whole day will just sort of be an outdoor celebration of food and music and creativity and things like that. Chance for you guys to just sort of rest and relax before heading off to a pre-gala dinner, and then that night is the International Gala. We are moving the International Gala. It's going to be down in the Dolan Fieldhouse this year. The main reason for that is it's going to be a nicer room to do the gala in. If those of you who've been to gala before, it's typically been in the Neller. The Neller has some really big challenges to it. The wooden swooping ceiling in there is awful for sound. And it just makes it sound really like, so the box shape of the Dolan, and the fact that the exact size of the Dolan is what we use in the Neller, but the Neller is much bigger, will sort of swallow up that echo and allow it to sound a lot better. In addition to that, we're able to fly sound and light, so there won't be any of the ground supports that we've used before, which have sort of caused some sightline issues. It'll be a really nice, clean stage presentation. Load-in is easier. The dressing rooms for the performers are easier because there'll actually be bathrooms in the dressing rooms. We're setting up a tent on the patio down there so the performers will actually be able to take, putting a mock dance floor so the performers will actually be able to block before they take the stage, which is really exciting. And so there's a lot of positive aspects to that. The one downside which you realize is that it's sort of off campus, as Andrew put it, it's Clark Far. That was funny. But we are talking about doing things like getting a trolley for that night and increasing escorts and things like that. So,
Are meals this weekend going to be open to everyone?
sorry, I'm choking on my gum. So in the afternoon, the barbecue is free.
Okay.
It's for all staff and faculty, and that's why the President's Office is paying for it. Or all students, staff, faculty, all community members. The dinner that night will not be. That will be meal plan only. And then the next day when we get to that, there are a couple of free meals, but there are a couple not, so I'll take you through that. But that's a good question. So the International Gala will be 7 to 10, and then one of the things we were just talking about when I was here, who was working on the Reverb Festival, is that they were going to have a community fire, but they realized that they were up against the International Gala, so we may actually do the community fire after the International Gala, so that may take place at 10:30 that night. The next day, breakfast, we're doing the traditional Spree Day activities, and we're doing it down at the Dolan. There's a number of reasons for that. One of them being that it's an easier space to contain, it's flatter, there's power down there. But in addition to that, there's an AAU basketball tournament taking place in the Neller. And so, given the states that some people find themselves in on Spree Day, and lots of little kids running around, we felt like it was good to sort of move that a little bit away from, move the two away from each other. During this particular event, we also will be offering trolley service back and forth between the two locations. So from 9:30, we'll be doing breakfast at the Blackstone. That's everybody can eat there for free if they want. That's just sort of, in a Pied Piper sort of way, lead folks from Blackstone down to the Dolan. They get a free breakfast and continue on their way down to the Dolan. 10 to 11:30 is just sort of different activities going on down there. The Spree Day chair will help to design that whole day down there. 11:30 to 1:30 will be the Spree Day barbecue that we typically do. That'll be down at the Dolan. And that too will also be available to all undergraduate students to eat for free for that day, for lunch anyways. 1:30 to 4 will be the traditional food trucks that we do, ice cream, kettle corn, all that stuff. And we'll be just doing a bunch of different activities down there on the field. And if it rains, we'll move as much as we can into the field house as possible. We'll come back up onto campus for a theme dinner in the dining hall from 4:37. That will be meal plan. And then that Cougar Fest comedy show. Actually, I should change that to Foot Soccer, whatever we're going to call it. So there it's called Cougar Fest comedy show, which will take place in Atwood. If we get a really big community, we may actually leave the International Gala set up down at the Dolan because the Atwood Theater only has 700 seats. But if we do pull in something like a Nazis and sorry, that's something that we can definitely pull 1,200, 1,500 people for. So we may leave the gala set up if that's the case, but it kind of depends on the budget. So, and then the International Gala after party, and then finally just sort of a theme brunch to everybody sort of catch their breath and eat some French toast sticks and call it a good weekend. So, our hope is that we're launching a new sort of exciting campus tradition by marrying a bunch of different events, and also giving folks sort of something to look forward to. I think we got a major victory in being able to get classes off that Friday, when it maybe looked like that wasn't going to happen. So that's that. Cool. So I guess my request is, if you are able to throw $15,000 at it, we can get a really good comedian. If not, we'll throw a pretty decent one. It's up to you. So, thank you.
Rebecca.
Okay. Well, I just have a few questions. I was actually, when I heard Spree Day was going by, I was like really upset, but it looks good, but I just have questions. Is that like, is all that stuff like, it's not set in stone, but is most of that like set?
Most of it is. Tuesday Spree Day is gone. And it's not coming back. It's something that, marching orders from a couple of vice presidents that, that tradition, because it really was, well, it was nice for you guys to get out of days off classes, it really was sort of a hot mess in terms of how people behaved in the neighborhood, how people behaved to community members, how people treated their fellow students, and so what we're really trying to do is buck that and still give the major elements of it, but put in some new and exciting traditions to that, because one of the things that, on top of it just being sort of boring with the things that were going on campus, people were behaving really badly in the neighborhood. And so our hope is by doing sort of this new approach in a different way, on a different day, but still having sort of those key elements that we're not getting that far away from the spirit of Spree Day, but losing all of the negative stuff that we've seen, especially the last 3 or 4 years. So.
I have 2 other type things. I think it's interesting that the only 2 traditions that Clark really has right now are Spree Day and Gala, and I think it's interesting that you put them together. However, I don't think it's a great idea because so many students are involved in Gala, and because it's not until the Saturday, I think, right? That during that week, it's massive, just practicing all the time. The people who are working it, setting up, getting ready. It's a huge I feel like everyone who's involved in Gala, which is so much of the student body, won't be able to enjoy that entire weekend because they're going to be focusing on getting ready for Gala. So that's a huge concern because I honestly don't think those 2 events should be put together. I think that people are going to miss out on one or the other.
Well, so Gala's the Friday night, and by canceling classes on the Friday, we have 2 options available to us to sort of alleviate that. We can either push through the normal schedule, and we have a run-through on Thursday night, pretty late into Thursday night, but take it easy on Friday, and folks are usually in class on that day. This year they wouldn't be, so they would be able to sort of relax on the day of Gala, go to these different street fairs and barbecues that we're offering, and sort of just chill out before going off to the performance that night. Or if we decide, and this is the option that Katie and I like, moving the dress rehearsal that we usually run on Thursday night into Friday afternoon, in which those who are running Gala, the only ones that are really tied up all day with Gala is about 10 to 15 ISA people and our student crew that's running the show. The performers are kind of in and out throughout the day, really only in 15, 20-minute bits.
But I think the performers, while they might only be at the dress rehearsal for that much, they're spending so much time just making sure that their performances are ready on their own time. Mm-hmm. Even when there is class, they're still spending every time possible. I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I think it's a huge conflict personally, but I just think people are going to miss out on one or the other. And then I'll just tell you one other thing because I want other people to be able to get their point in. I think besides that, I just think that the name should stay the same. I think those other names are kind of cheesy, and I think a lot of other people would kind of agree, and maybe a new name sets a new precedent, but I honestly believe that Spree Day is the biggest tradition that we have. My mom came to Clark, my great aunt came to Clark. When they ask me about Clark, they ask about Spree Day. That's what people know. I think that changing the name really takes away from the tradition of Spree Day. I work a lot of alumni events. That's what people remember, and I think taking away that name would be a huge deterrent for so many people. I think it's a big problem, honestly, from alumni affairs.
I understand what you're saying, but there's something to be said for tradition. There's something to be said for all the negativity and the poor behavior that gets associated with that day.
But I think these activities kind of take away from the poor behavior by making it on the weekend and everything, and making more events that people want to go to. It takes away from the poor behavior, but the name change, I just don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. We toyed with the notion of Spreekend, but
it's just people just know the name, when you Google Clark. When I found out about this, I Googled Clark University, and the thing that comes up in every post is Spree Day. That's just what people know it by. Yeah. And I don't know. I'd ask Tom Dolan. I don't think he'd be a fan of it. So.
Lauren?
I think that I was thinking sort of about how you're going to sell this to everyone else, sort of, and it's sort of, in some ways, it's okay, well, we know that what we know as Spree Day is pretty much gone. That's what you're saying, that Tuesday off, it's gone, it's not going to happen. So in some ways, we're locked into this. But at the same time, having a bunch of really angry students is not what you guys are going for, obviously. So in order to sell this to the rest of the student body as something that people will actively want to be involved in, whether it's, you know, if Gala is definitely locked into being part of this weekend, like, people need to stay, you know, focused on Gala in some ways. They need to stay focused on this as something that people will want to get involved in, either as like Spree Day chair, or, you know, volunteering in that way, or actually just going to these events, which you guys have laid out here. And by the way, I really like a lot of them, and I think that like selling this to the student body is going to be one of the hardest things. And I think that if you keep the name, and like Spree Weekend is not terrible. I'm not a huge fan of Spree Weekend.
What if we don't name it?
Why not just Spree Day?
Or like Spree Weekend, or just no.
But
I don't think it needs a name.
I mean,
The name is the tradition, that's the thing.
Alright, guys, can we please put out our hands and have one person speak at a time? I know this is it's always good to hear a laugh. This is going to be a contentious issue, so can we please follow the rules of order here? Lauren.
I don't disagree with anything that you said about sort of like the bad connotations of Spree Day and the name, just the name. I would say that because my main thought was, oh my God, I really like this, I want this to happen, but how are you going to sell it to everyone else? Because not everyone is going to be able to sit here and watch you go through that PowerPoint and have you stand right in front of them and like say this to them. Not everyone is going to be able to have that. They might not be sold on it as easily, and I would really beg of you to like think about keeping Spree in the name. And like I don't love Cougar Fest or any of those types of names. Like I thought like the stock idea is kind of cute, but just I would say, and I'm a senior, so this is coming from someone who's like been here for a few years and like knows how other seniors feel about this. There's a couple of us here. You know, people talk this up. People say like, oh my God, I'm, you know, I had a lot of friends going abroad last spring, and they were like, I'm missing Spree Day. It was like the end of the world when they thought they were, you know, when they missed Spree Day. And like, there are definitely bad connotations. Not gonna like deny that. Not gonna deny that like we definitely should make changes. I would say keep Spree. That's all. Thank you.
Radhika?
Yeah, also I know what Becca said, like merging Gala and Spree Day. I know I'm in ISA and I'm organizing a dance, and they call it Help Me for a reason. Like, it's like we really have no time, and as a freshman, and so many freshmen are involved, like they would really look forward to something like this. But by merging like two things, like there'll be literally no time for us, because we have to practice. And especially the last week is the most important week, and that's when you practice the most. And I don't know if we will be able to attend all these events, you know, at least on Friday, and I think Friday was one of the most interesting days for us. And I would miss, like, I would not like to miss, even though we're like a small group of students, but I think every student is important, even if it's a small group of students.
Hannah.
Yeah, I would agree with that point. I think it also kind of takes away from the thunder of Gala, and it really just draws away a lot of students who won't be able to participate. I also agree, changing a name, that doesn't change behavior. That, like, you call an elephant, whatever. It's like, that, I don't think changing it to Cougar Fest or something, that doesn't, like, change any of the connotations. And I think Spree Day has been within the tradition of Clark for such a long time that it is something that should be considered a vital part of the event, even if it is just symbolic in some ways. And then I had a few other questions. As far as the comedians won't cost students any money, because previously...
It'll be free.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you kind of mentioned increasing escort. I didn't hear all of that, but that might be contentious for the students who work for escort, because they might want to participate in the events.
Well, I think we would focus more on larger vehicles like trolleys and
Okay.
stuff like that, school buses.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all I had to add.
Brittany.
I'm a first year, so I've never been to a Spree Day. I've heard a lot of things about it, but I've never been to one, so I can't really speak to that effect. But my question was more so, I knew it used to be sort of a secret, like sort of secret. But my question is, how are you going to keep everything a secret, and especially the comedian, are you going to reveal who gets chosen beforehand or not?
I mean, I think we would not be looking at it being a secret. There's too much that would go into that and it'd be too obvious. And the reality is it hasn't really ever been a secret. You know, we like to pretend that it is, but the reality is that faculty put on their syllabi that admissions cancels tours, and we often speak openly in various meetings about when it takes place. 2 years ago, the Spree Day committee decided to not make it a secret at all and abandon that tradition altogether. We, in theory, brought that back last year, but the reality is that it's never a secret. It's pretty well known when it is. So, and you had a second question. I'm sorry.
Are you going to reveal the entire itinerary as well?
Yeah, I think we would probably, depend on what the Spree Day committee chair wanted to do in terms of comedian. We could leave it a secret, we could not leave it a secret. My guess is if we left it a secret, we'd probably announce it like Thursday night, maybe like bingo or something like that. So that folks had time to prep to go to it and get an interest in who it was. So, yeah.
Shaylin.
I agree with a lot of what's being said about names and about Gala especially. I really do feel that adding those two together, it poses problems for certain students. But putting on sort of my other hat and seeing an argument for the name change, I really do feel, as at least an RLH person, an RA person, putting Spree Day on that Friday turns it into Spree Day is all weekend, let's drink the whole time sort of deal, which I would love to avoid personally. I don't want to be on that whole weekend. It's a pretty bad day, I feel, for RAs. And so I am okay with the name change, I guess is what I'm saying.
Will?
In addition to Gala and everything else being so compact into one giant weekend, we do have the Friday off, but April tends to be where a lot of students have a lot of finals start to come in, final projects start to come around, and I know it's already a big deal for Gala students for Hell Week, and I just think that if you have an entire weekend of all these events that everybody wants to go to, I mean, at some point the kids are going to be like, well, I mean, I can't drink and party all weekend. I have work to do, and I feel that it's a shame if people decided between events because they had work to do. I'd rather like the Thunder be on Gala one weekend and the Thunder be on Spree weekend or whatever you call it another weekend, just because it gives students the opportunity to be able to attend both and put as much Thunder in both events. Well, if you put them together, I really don't think that attendance will be as high as we would want it to at every single event, just because it's so compact together. It's already really hard for Clarkies to get Clarkies to attend events, and so I feel like we could maximize the attendance of events by separating the two rather than putting them together.
Next
question. What Will said, I perfectly agree with all of it, and is there would be no consideration by teachers, like of this weekend, or is there not notified ahead? It would be really hard for any student to just have 3 days, and it's expected that we'll attend all these events, so it means we'll have zero time to just sit and do our homeworks, and that's what we're here for, technically. So I'm just saying it's going to be hell for it's going to be Hell Week and Hell Weekend for ISA people and for other people who are working for all this great stuff to happen. But it's also going to be a Hell Weekend for everyone else in the university. And I don't think that's going to be enjoyable in the upcoming finals we have at the end of April too.
Like, I guess I would point out that there's nothing scheduled for Sunday, and that you're not really talking about a huge change to Gala Weekend, because we still usually when we do Gala Weekend we have Euphoria right afterwards. So you're talking about some pretty mellow, low-key events on both Friday and Saturday. In talking with ISA about this, because they've obviously been some pretty major players in this decision-making process, they're actually pretty excited about losing Gala into a bigger weekend, because they felt like Gala has become a little bit of a megalodon with a sort of a bad reputation for being the most important thing that happens, and they're excited to have that become part of something larger, because it's not all this focus on Gala. And so that was one of our big discussions with them, was that we'd be putting you into a weekend where you're not the focus. You're a part of a larger celebration of the spring. How do you feel about that? And the higher E-board of ISA was actually very much in favor of it, because they felt like they were getting a lot of heat from other student leaders and other students, because Gala was becoming the focus of so many people's attention where it would be lost amongst other people. So yeah, it's getting late, so I'm tired.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I would like to say that even though it must suck for the Gala students, if you do want to get people to cut down on the drinking, it's probably a good idea to have them on the same weekend. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear, because I'm sure, that's not what college students want to do, but that would make people have to work and have fun, sober at the same time. So, I agree.
Mike?
My question was, well, I had a few questions. Firstly, because you don't have a set act, you're thinking about the Zanzari. If we do allocate this money, I know we're allocating something. What would you be? Do you have potential acts lined up that, with the allocated money, now they're in your range, or without your range? Do you have an actual plan for who?
So I put out, I think, about 12 names altogether. Some of them are slightly above our price range. Some of them are slightly below. So if I don't get this money, we'll be focusing on the ones that are on the lower end of that range. If we do get the money, then we're able to go higher and to be able to spend a little bit more money on that. So.
My second concern was the rebranding of stores. I think everyone's been touching on the fact that the name change. I think it's completely the brand of Spree Day itself. Like, whether or not it'll cut on illicit activities, I think it won't, because let's say you discuss this new, whatever you like to call it, Freud Fest weekend, to students who ask, where's Spree Day? Well, this is now Spree Day. This is new Spree Day. What's the difference? It has the same connotations of old Spree Day with now like a rebranding. Why can't we just take Spree Day and try to make it new and better to have more students besides rebranding an old tradition? I don't really understand.
I guess I would say that's what we did. And Spree Day is in the schedule. It's listed as Spree Day. It's just on Saturday. And then you still have a day of canceled classes. You have several large barbecues and street festivals. And so, in a sense, we've done that. We've just introduced an expanded model upon, it has the key elements of lots of free food, a day off of classes, major campus events. But Spree Day is still very much a part of that. Because Spree Day is in the schedule. It's this Saturday activity. So.
Well, I just had a question. When I know in the past there have been issues with like classes are canceled, but labs are still in session, which has really only been an issue for like mostly science people, because they're really the ones who have labs during the day. But on Fridays, I know there's a lot of discussions in labs for a lot of non-science classes that have discussions in labs on Fridays, because they need computer labs and that's when they're scheduled. Yeah. Would those be canceled as well, or would just classes be canceled?
I mean, I can't tell a faculty member to cancel their class if that's the case. I mean, the directive will come from the president. If the faculty member chooses to not follow that, then that's up to their discretion. I can't go in and tell Professor Smith like you can't have your discussion that day. So I think those are few and far between, because I'm guessing a faculty member, turn off the camera, on a Friday, the chance to, I'm just kidding.
Keep going on tape.
Yeah, keep going. I'm guessing the chance for a long weekend in April. I know if I had the chance to not be here, I would probably be jumping on that. So I think you'll have a greater likelihood of that discussion being rescheduled to another time. So yeah, with the support of the president and the provost. So.
Becca.
Okay. I apologize if I raised my voice before. I just got really passionate about this. So I'm really sorry. But is there a possibility that students' points of view will be considered, and when students find out about this, are they gonna take it to you or to administration, like hire the geography building people, who would we confront about this? Would be my question for you. And then as for a council, I just recommend that we table this request until next week, maybe, so we can think about it more and everything and sleep on it, and then react, and we'll still obviously have the money because it's not going anywhere yet. We can vote on it later, and then also just not be here all night. So that's my two things. Is there consideration for students' opinions, and table the request?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is. My office door is always open. Denise's office door is always open. The president's is always open with his open office hours. So that there are ways to direct feedback.
Are they
sure.
like set in stone on this? Are they like?
I mean, I would say the Tuesday spree day is gone, and I can be like I. That's very much against how I like to go about advising student groups and organizations in major campus events, but there are times when, as an administrator, you have to show some courage and some wisdom in the decisions that you make. And our campus tradition, as far back as it goes, is not a healthy one. And so a decision needs to be made, and it has not been made in a vacuum by any means. There's been several student voices, not several, but many student voices in on this. As well as key administrators. And the argument of we need a day off on a Tuesday to drink is not strong enough to curb that. And that's the only argument I've heard pro Tuesday spree day, is that we need a Tuesday off to drink. And that's just not gonna fly. So unfortunately, that some of that is already in motion and it's not gonna be turned around. There's opportunities to shape the new schedule and to add feedback in terms of the events that will take place in and through that. But and this is, if anybody know me and have worked with me over the last 4 years we've been here, so know that this is very much against how I do my job. But there are times when big decisions need to be made to better this community, and this is one of them.
Thank you.
Hannah?
Well, it seems like this seems very set in stone as far as the timing and scheduling. I am afraid it might backfire to some extent. Just if you consider, like, if an event like this is on a Tuesday, all of the students have to get up for class and go back to their normal lives on a Wednesday. Whereas if this becomes kind of like a weekend thing, it could go very well, but it also leads to people might be a little bit more liberal just because they know they don't have to do anything for the next 2 days or so forth. So I would consider that along with the gala issue in the future if changes are made.
And we are well aware of that. I may have gray hair, but it wasn't all that long ago. I graduated college and we had our own spring weekends too, and I know what we did on those spring weekends. But the reality is that our schedule is also very intentional and that it breaks up the pace of that type of behavior based on the types of activities that take place in and throughout the day. So if you look at the schedule, sort of how things take place and the types of events they are, we're getting people into different locations for different events and breaking up the pace of hopefully problematic drinking. I mean, it's obviously the first year that we see that, and that we know we're going to have some things to learn from that in future years. But the idea of putting gala in there, and that's the thinking that's the afternoon events. Well, yes, people will have days off of classes, there'll be barbecues and things like that. So it'll be somewhat reminiscent of spree day. I think the likelihood of someone going wasted to gala is pretty unlikely. I know that people do drink before they go, but I think fall down drunk, puking in a corner, pretty unlikely. Saturday's activities, I think we also run the risk because that's probably also kind of reminiscent of the old spree day where you have the food in the morning and the barbecue in the afternoon, but then we throw in the comedy show to sort of break up that momentum of drinking. The other thing too is where it is such a long day, it starts early in the morning, goes all the way till 2 o'clock in the morning with a gala after party. Our hope is that folks will be sensible and pace themselves as they go through that day because it is such a long day and because there are so many things going on that they're not going to go out at 9 o'clock in the morning, put themselves into a coma by 10:30 because they're not going to make the rest of the events. So our schedule, though it seems reminiscent of the old spree day, it's very intentional in the way we bump up the day and break up the day so that we're getting people up and about and moving on to campus. Whereas the old spree day schedule, we had inflatables and food. And that's 10 minutes worth of activities. So.
Yeah, I think that was a strong choice as far as splitting that up. I am a little bit hesitant considering that some students might disregard the whole schedule altogether and just see a 4 days.
And I'm worried about that too. I won't lie. I'm absolutely worried about that too, and that's part of the risk that we see in this, and that we realize that it's not going to be a perfect weekend, and we acknowledge that it's not going to be a weekend free of problematic drinking. We know that is going to happen, but our hope is that by introducing new campus traditions and bigger, more attractive events, that it'll break up that problematic drinking a little bit more than we have in the past. So,
Alex?
You talked to us back in the fall about expanding the music to a bigger act. Was that part of the Saturday activities, and if so, is that still going to be a bigger act than in the past?
Did I say music or comedy? I thought I said comedy.
Oh, I could have been mistaken, but I mean in the fall when you talked to us. Did you talk about a bigger musical act or not?
You talk. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be calling on people. I'm sorry.
Katie?
Thanks. Well, this kind of goes back a little bit to Mike's point from earlier regarding why not try and better adapt the previous incarnation of Spree Day to better fit what we hope Spree Day to be in the future. And that is to say that we've tried that for the 4 Spree Days I have been at the university for. Every year we go into it trying to add something new, trying to add something different, and it isn't necessarily, it's not accomplishing, 7 for Mike, it's not accomplishing what, we had hoped and what upper administration had hoped. So we really were charged with revamping the day. So the initial conversation that you're recalling, Alex, is when it was Mike and I saying, how can we make Spree Day better? And shortly thereafter, we received some, pretty substantial feedback from other folks in administrative positions regarding Spree Day as well, which we then kind of, again, went back to the drawing board and came up with the schedule that Mike's presented to you tonight. I think that, there have been a lot of conversations, as Mike mentioned, with ISA, with other, stakeholders in this, both student and staff, and that there has been a lot of thought given to maintaining both the tradition of Spree Day and maintaining the tradition of Gala, and making sure those events both receive, the attention they're due. And this is our, best effort to do that.
Darren?
In regards to the name, maybe Spree Fest. I feel like if you go to your friends and say, hey, Spree Day's canceled, but we have Cougar Fest, you're gonna be like, oh my God, Spree Day's canceled, and not really worried about what Cougar Fest might be, and all those other fests might be way better than just Spree Day, because like Beck was saying,
because it's not a day anymore.
Yeah, because it's not a day anymore, but if it's Spree Fest, it's like, oh wow, like, we have a whole weekend of what Spree Day used to be. And it's not going away from kind of what Spree Day was and what everyone remembers as.
Okay.
Another option I would think is that you can call it whatever you want, but just give like a subheading to like maybe Friday or something as Spree Day, because people really enjoy having that day off. Like, oh, Spree Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Julia?
Okay, kind of jumping off of what Hannah said earlier from the RA perspective, I know on Spree Day we have a lot of elevated security. Res Life staff is on duty all day, EMS, everyone. Maybe this hasn't been thought through all the way yet because it's still a ways away, but are you thinking of doing something similar to that for the entire weekend?
No, I think our main focus for that would be on Saturday, actually, and not Friday, because I think that our hope is that the buffer of Gala being on Friday night, as well as a couple of festivals and lots of free food that day, that though some of those elements are reminiscent of what we've done in Spree Day before, that having Gala that night, and it, I'm not stupid. I know that people drink before they go to Gala, but I just think that people will, common sense will prevail, realizing that they're going to be sitting in a folding chair for 3 hours, drunk, and how unpleasant that will be, and hoping that common sense will prevail. So I don't think that we'll have extensive security on Friday. I think that we'll probably look at more towards the Saturday activities, because the Saturday morning into the comedy show is a long stretch of time where folks don't have anywhere else to be. So I think that we'll probably treat that one closer to the spree day. But the other thing too is by doing it down the dome, we don't have to put up snow fencing and things like that. It's already sort of a natural venue for an event like that than fencing the green, which is kind of standalone on its own. So.
Well, I'd like to move to table the request till next week, just so we all have a week to think about it. We've heard great points today, and I think that we would make a better informed decision if we were to leave.
Right, so we actually don't have to table anything because there have been no motions made yet. So if anybody would like to make a motion or anything, anybody would like to move this past the discussion into any other motion making or voting or whatever you guys want to do, since you've been on for an hour. Rebecca.
I would like to motion to move the
Rory.
So I guess I'm going to suggest we move on with our agenda, but just some stuff to keep in mind. This money is not to you can't say it's free for this money, like that's all happening. This is our decision with this money is deciding if we want to try to make what is already kind of inevitable almost better to a certain extent. So just keep that in mind that if you want to if you have a problem with the spree day, bring that up with the appropriate people, but it's not this money.
Mike? Yeah, basically what this money does is just puts us into a different bracket of comedians for that night, and that's it's a higher caliber of comedians. So thanks for coming.
Could you just quickly say some of the comedians you could get if we gave them the money?
Yeah, if you give me a second. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy. Computer's misbehaving. Give me 2 more seconds.
We could also just discuss this the next time we discuss this.
I'll have it in 2 seconds. Okay, so the one I sent most recently, or actually the one I sent right before I sent it on December 20th, but that was our first survey. Lewis Black was one we were considering. He would be at top level. We've since found out that because we've had to wait so long, he's no longer available on that date. But Lewis Black is pretty famous in terms of his political commentary. He was one of the early Daily Show correspondents. He was in the movie Accepted. Bo Burnham, who was in the movie Funny People, he scored really well in the survey, so he's another one that's up top. Kevin Hart is another one. He's a pretty famous comedian. He's on Comedy Central. DeRay Davis, who's on Reno 911, and he was in that movie 21 Jump Street. Jeff Garlin, who's from Curb Your Enthusiasm. D.L. Hughley, Def Comedy Jam, he's on the lower end. Angela Johnson, she's from Mad TV, she's on the lower end. BJ Novak, who is the intern from The Office, and one of the head writers on The Office. He's on the higher end. Craig Robinson, who is on The Office in the movie Hot Tub Time Machine. He's the guy who works in the warehouse in The Office. I'm trying to think what his character name is, but
Daryl.
What is it?
Daryl.
Daryl, thank you. So he's on the lower end. Nick Swardson, he's from That's My Boy, which is that Adam Sandler movie, and Reno 911. Although I've heard some bad things about him actually showing up to his gigs. So, who one second. And then the one we sent out this last week. Michael Ian Black and Mike Birbiglia, both are really well-known comedians. That's a co-bill for $40,000. Nick Kroll, who is in the show The League, and also has his own show on Comedy Central. Stephen Lynch is more of a local guy, but he's pretty funny, but he's real cheap. He's like 25 grand, which is real cheap. Comedy Central Campus Tour is on right where we can afford, so it's about 40,000. That's Judah Freelander, which is the guy from 30 Rock that wears the hats, and two other comics. Jim Brewer, who really hasn't had anything in a long time, and has not aged well. Bill Burr, who's a local comedian, he's pretty funny. He's been on like a lot of the late night shows, but he's on the lower end. Anthony Jeselnik, who's on Comedy, who does the Comedy Central roast, and he's got a new Comedy Central show, the Jeselnik Offensive, and that's it. So it's a good mix.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other points of discussion or motions or anything? No one has actually made a motion yet, so we're still talking about stuff. Will?
So, I'd like to move to allocate the 15. No, I don't know. Well, because if we do that, then we can table it, right?
Or we can just not do it.
Or we can just
I mean, you just keep it.
Can we table, if we make a request, then we can table it, or we...
Or we can just not do it and discuss it next week.
Okay, well, whatever.
Right. Hannah?
To go on the agenda?
Right, so seeing that there are no motions or other points of discussion on the floor, at this time we'll be moving on with our agenda, and we will be reconsidering this in old business next week then, if no one's going to make any motions. So we'll be moving down the agenda into last words. Does anybody have any last words? Becca?
I'd like to thank everyone for their input and move to adjourn.
Katie?
New folks, your listservs have been updated. If you have any trouble emailing to them, let me know. Your listserv address would be just your representative title, so like Stanford Rep, Bullitt Rep, and so on and so forth, at lists.clarkview.edu. Any difficulty, let me know, and we'll look into it.
Rebecca?
Also, I submitted the key list. If you're not on it for some reason, please let me know. Send me an email.
All right, any other points of discussion, motions? Becca?
To adjourn again.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Tyler. Questions for the discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes.
I like that.
Abstention.